You totally can plan a trip to Alaska. It's not overwhelming and it definitely is worth it. The next category is medical. So I researched our medical health coverage beforehand to see if we were in network or out of network in Alaska. And surprisingly, a few places we were in network. So I wanted to make sure that if we needed any sort of medical care, we knew where to go that was in network that would save us money. So I had our health insurance is Preferred One. I had the Preferred One app on our phone to be able to link remotely to any sort of medical information or documents. I also had a separate backup of PDFs on a desktop folder on our Mac, which linked with our iPhone. So we had both printed and files on the app, and then also files, separate PDF files. So we had kind of triple backup on documentation. I also had a list of all the local hospitals that were in network in the main cities that we were at, which was Girdwood, Anchorage, and Seward. There are definite limitations as far as hospitals and urgent cares. I figured that it was good to have a mixture of both so we knew where to go in the event of an emergency. So I looked up all of those hospitals and urgent cares and also their hours and contact information of which places would be in network. And then also if the in network wasn't available, I also had the options of out of network. And I had those contact information for each location also. Transportation can be very difficult in an emergency due to the rugged terrain, and so MedEvac is definitely something that happens. When we were there, we did see a couple MedEvac helicopters. It was, I wouldn't say it's rare, I wouldn't say it's common, but it does happen. So I looked into MedEvac. There is a company called LifeMed Alaska, which is a membership where you join this group called LifeMed Alaska. They provide transportation via helicopter, plane, or ambulance. And you buy this membership. It was like $50 for the family for a year. And as long as your insurance covers MedEvac, then being part of this group, they do not charge you more than what your insurance will cover for that MedEvac. In other types of situations, a MedEvac might be very expensive, more than what your insurance would cover, and you could end up with a $20,000 bill. Buying this membership prevents that from happening. So I thought it was worthwhile. It's a $50 membership to have this LifeMed Alaska. We got a phone number, a 24-hour phone number to contact and call if we needed to be medevaced and if it was medically necessary. It's not just for convenience. It has to be medically necessary, and you must have a doctor order for transport between hospitals. So there are definitely some criteria, but if you get into an accident, all of that stuff, it would be medically necessary. You would have a doctor order for transport. They even provide some transport to the lower 48 states if needed. So all that was definitely worth $50. So I had all that information printed out and the phone number of contact, and I made sure everybody knew where that information was. I also had emergency family contacts for other family members of who to contact in the case of an emergency. I also brought a first aid kit. So this is the first aid kit. You can see it's fairly small. It is able to be carried in a backpack relatively easily. So just quick, easy access to Band-Aids, a fairly wide range of larger Band-Aids to smaller Band-Aids. There's a small scissors in here. It does not have sharp points or anything like that, so that was okay on the airline. We also had some honey. If you end up being hypoglycemic at all, honey is an easy thing to carry. We had some powdered electrolytes to mix in with the water, and then also some energy bars, some Cliff bars. These are all in airtight Ziploc bags, so we didn't have to worry too much about like wildlife smelling any of these things. We had a compass. Be sure if you have a compass that you know how to use it. Hand sanitizer. There's places where there's not like running water, or if you put your hand into a mountain stream, even though it might look clear and clean, there are bacteria and protozoal parasites in that water. And so you want to do some hand sanitizer afterwards. Hygiene is definitely important. We had some latex gloves if we needed. My kit has lighters in them. Lighters you cannot bring on an airplane with you, but if you stop at Walmart in Anchorage, you can pick up a few of these lighters. They're super cheap, and it's nice to have a source to be able to have some fire. We have some paracord, that's reflective paracord. In here is some medication. So we have some generic Zyrtec for allergies. We did not know what kind of pollens or grasses would be there if we happen to maybe be allergic to those things. So it's good to have, if you have any like hay fever type symptoms or whatever pollens are coming out that you might just react to, it's good to have some Zyrtec with you. We also had ibuprofen, some artificial tears. If you get something in your eye, it's important to have some artificial tears in your eye to lubricate that and soothe your eye. We also had some cough medicine. We also had some anti-nausea medication. We have some triamcinolone topical ointment, which is a topical steroid in case there's any sort of rash or bug bites. We have a thermometer to see if anyone has a fever. And we also have some motion sickness medication, so like Dramamine. But again, we had the scopolamine for the little patch, which helped with motion sickness. There's ibuprofen. I also carried a life straw in case we needed any sort of emergency water. It's lighter and easier to carry a life straw than it is to carry several like gallons of water with you hiking. So anyway, I had this, and then we each had our own water bottles for hiking. This is some tape, athletic tape for blisters while walking. 2 glow sticks. These are those chemical snap glow sticks. And then I have an ice pack for any sort of sprained ankle. So we have this bandage with this coagulant agent in there that helps with clotting. We also have an ACE bandage and some latex gloves and a hemostat. And then I have a large garbage bag which can double as a waterproof tarp, and some Ziploc bags that you can use for water carrying if you need to. So that is basically it for the emergency kit that I brought with us. In the emergency kit, I also did have a Leatherman knife. That I had to go leave in the checked bag on the airplane because you can't bring knives on an airplane, but it can go in the checked bag. We used the Leatherman knife quite a bit with the scissors and just odds and ends. I definitely would bring a Leatherman knife and have it as part of your kit, but again, put it in your checked bag so it doesn't get confiscated. So this is our first aid kit. It's important to not get too overboard. You want it lightweight and compact enough where you carry it with you. A first aid kit is not very useful if you don't even have it with you. If it's too big and bulky and you end up just leaving it, make it small and compact enough where you carry it with you and you actually have it if you need it. So this is our travel first aid kit. We did use some of these things, but not much. It was helpful and reassuring to know that we have these things if we needed to. We did not have to go to like an urgent care or anything like that. If someone got a cut or a wound or something like that, we could take care of that ourselves. Next was our lodging. We stayed in Airbnbs, which worked out just fine, worked out great. Things I would just say about that would be Wi-Fi, kitchen, dishwasher, and parking, and laundry. Those are kind of the big things that you want to watch for and be sure that those places have, or at least plan on some of them having. So that is pretty much all I'm going to say about lodging. Location is key. You want convenience to be able to walk to places with as minimal driving as possible. So location is very, very key with lodging. Next is communications. So I checked out our cell phone network and verified our network coverage. We found that the network coverage of our carrier was very spotty in Alaska. And so we would end up getting coverage in maybe about 70% of the locations that we were at, which is fine as long as you're within that 70%. And if you had an emergency and you were outside of that 70% coverage range, that could be a little bit of a problem. So we thought of a few other options. Our other main resource for communications, which worked out very well and was free, was a mobile hotspot that we checked out at our local library. That was free and it was unlimited data. We actually connected to that mobile hotspot all the time. The good thing about that mobile hotspot is that it went through the T-Mobile network, which is a completely different network than what our cell phone coverage allowed. And so it gave us overlapping areas of cell coverage. And that brought our cell phone coverage up to about 90 to 95% coverage in all the places that we were at. So that was a huge benefit. Although the network is very slow, it was nice to know that we did have coverage. I wouldn't rely too much on cell phone coverage though, because it's very spotty. It's very different based on what kind of terrain you're at, if you're in the mountains or down on the coastal areas. It also hugely depends on if there happens to be a cruise ship nearby. What we found is as the cruise ships were coming in, it would clog up the cell tower network, and any sort of cellular coverage or Wi-Fi would be overwhelmed, and the coverage would go down to like close to zero during those times. So it's just something they had to anticipate, which is again another reason why everything was printed out, and we had backup hard copies of our information and also digital copies of all of our information. So even though we did lose coverage a few times, we had all of these other backup plans, and so it ended up not being an issue at all. You could rent a satellite phone. There are two places in Anchorage, the Satellite Phone Store or the Satellite Phone Specialists, which is also called the Surveyors Exchange. You can rent a satellite phone for about $50 to $75 a month with a limited plan, or no plan at all and just have it as emergencies. I think a satellite phone would be very beneficial if you're going into the deep outback, but we weren't, and so we opted for not doing the satellite phone. You can also get your own satellite communicating device like the Garmin InReach. Those are all fine and great, but they do cost extra money, and the plans cost extra money too. We opted for not doing that. We thought that we had enough cellular Wi-Fi and hotspot coverage to cover a majority of our needs. We brought these walkie-talkies with us for some extra backup communication if we ever got separated. The kids carried one of these, the adults carried one of these. It's called the Midland Extra Talk, and it's a short distance radio. It does have the national weather scanner on here also, so it does scan for weather when you have that mode turned on, and so we would be alerted if there's any major weather events in that area too. So it was a good kind of backup communication if in case we ever got separated or if we had more of a distance between us. It was a good backup option to have. And so I would definitely recommend these walkie-talkies. You can carry them on the plane with you. when, let's say, one person wanted to go for a walk and the other person might not want to go for a walk, instead of relying on a cell phone for texting or phone call, we could rely on these.